Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Modern Mind interview series where we talk to real people just like you who are doing their best to be their best every single day. And today I have with me a good friend, Ruthie, who is one of the most interesting people I know. She's like an onion, if you will. Every time I get to know her and we chat, there's like another layer to learn a little bit more about. So, without further ado, Ruthie, can you tell us a little bit about who you are? And don't worry, I'll help you peel back the layers.
Like who I am as a human being. I guess probably first and foremost, like I'm a people person. I'm community builder. I'm the oldest of five girls, so I think that kind of like made me who I am. Um, but yeah, so I build community for work and outside of work too. So for my day to day, you'll find me as the director of community at Grow Therapy, which is a mental health care platform and marketplace. And then outside of that, I put on local meetups and events for Women in Innovation, which is a global nonprofit. I co lead that chapter. I lead the Led by Community chapter of New York. So that's a community for community builders. And for fun, I like to put on meetups for the Old Girls Club, which is a community that I'm a member of.
Love it. That sounds absolutely amazing. And given that community seems to be the theme of so much of the work that you do, you touched on this idea that you're one of five girls, which is pretty spectacular, which we'll get to in a second. But how did you find your way into building community and also building community for community builders?
Yeah, I mean, it was a journey. Um, Background is in marketing, so I've been in tech and marketing my entire career. Um, Worn every hat that existed, right? Like content, a little bit of performance, a little bit of growth, a little bit of project management, program, production, you name it. But I found myself super inspired and engaged by a marketing campaign that we ran at the last company I worked at, which was Amazing Women in E-commerce. And it was just like a marketing camp, like a classic brand marketing campaign, like calling on the e-commerce industry to nominate amazing women. And for every nomination, we donate $5 to Girls Inc. So in raising money, we also raised awareness for Yotpo, the company that was running the marketing program. And then we announced this class of honorees, for International Women's Day. And after we made the announcement, and it was great, and the feedback was amazing, and the brand goals were reached, there was a lot of like questions of like, okay, well, what's next? Like, how do we connect with each other? Like, how do I meet these amazing women, etc. So it started out pretty small, just like having meetups or events around like, as satellite events to like major trade shows in the industry. And then eventually it was like, oh, we're onto something. Like this is like every year, like more and more people are, nominating, more and more people are getting involved. There's more buzz. And I was kind of tasked with like building a program around it. So, starting to have like a more consistent events calendar, content calendar, launched a website and an Instagram, and eventually launched a Slack space and a newsletter. And that Slack space ended up having like 4,000 women in it and 10,000 like newsletter subscribers. And that was how I got into community, because the
Wow.
next thing that came up at that company was like, wow, this is so great. Community is awesome. Like, what if you were to do this for like our actual customers? And that was like when I took on like the official like title and role of like head of community at the company and like building a product B2B SaaS community. And then since then, I just like dove all in to community and like was so impressed by other community builders and wanted to connect with them. So I joined a lot of communities for community builders and then just naturally ended up being the person who raised her hand to like do more as the oldest daughter often does.
As the oldest daughter often does. Okay, so I'm going to come back to the community side of things, but let's actually touch on the eldest daughter piece. How do you think that shaped you?
I mean, just like you have to take responsibility, you have to be independent, right? You need to be able to like handle stuff on your own when your parents like attention is split with four other siblings who are younger than you and need more help. Um, I was very just like natural, like I'm very naturally like mother henny of my like sisters. I want them to succeed. I want them like I love them and support them, and I'm like their biggest cheerleaders. And I think that that like makes me the kind of friend that I am too. Like I'm also that kind of friend, like the friend who like wants to listen and give you advice and like is typically like in the more like stable and responsible place, and therefore like trying to help others get more like just like I think that you kind of crave stability as an oldest daughter, so you like make it for yourself, which I just really did, you know.
Yeah, and I'm curious. I really love that because that kind of segues nicely into our topic here, which is mental fitness. So, can you talk about how you've evolved that need for stability or the tools you've used to find stability as you've gotten older? Or another way to ask that is like, what does your mental fitness journey, how has that looked and how has it changed over time?
Yeah, so I think that like it's not necessarily like just stability, right? It's like performance and success and like achievement, and that, manifested as a teenager like needing to be like straight A's, needing to be like student council vice president, needing to have like all of the extracurriculars and like the absolute best possible GPA. And that followed me into like school too. And I think as you get older, the pressure builds. And ultimately, like at work, I held myself to super high standards, and that became like it's just not sustainable, right? Like you can't be the best daughter and the best sister and the best employee and the best manager and the best friend and the best host. Like it's impossible to be all of those things at once. So basically in 2020, I kind of like hit a point where it's like, yeah, this isn't going to work anymore. Like my brain, I guess, or my body kind of just like shut down on me. And I started to get like really, really dizzy and like headaches, and realized, okay, I actually can't like work like sitting up. I'm going to just start working lying down. Like that seems like the solution. And then just, I think mentally like got to a place where it was just too much. Like it was like really clear, like, oh, this isn't gonna work. Like went to hospital, got all the scans, started to like take care of myself, took some time like to just like even prioritize mental health and health alone, was huge. And that was kind of like the beginning of the journey for me, because that was the first time that I was like I had assessed my mental, like I'd been in therapy and I was on anti-anxiety medication because like again oldest daughter, like classic. But I think this was the first time where I was like, oh, I'm going to proactively like change things about my day to day so that this never happens again. And so a few things that I did that like were absolute game changers and like left me in a position to actually be able to change my mental fitness and my mental state. One was like I just picked up Headspace, started meditating every day. Like I now have like a 1,500 and something day streak. Like it's absolutely ridiculous. But like I really like it, I hold on to it because I know that like it's just like something as small even as like, some days it's only 3 minutes and another day it's 20 minutes. It's still so valuable and it's worth it. So one was meditation, two was prioritizing physical health. So now like I changed the way that my schedule was built, and I blocked off time in the mornings to work out. So I knew in the evening it wasn't going to happen. So I was like, fine, mornings, workout every day, block my calendar. You can't book a meeting with me for 1 hour. Like, you know what I mean? And just be strict about it. And then the third thing was really just changing my approach to work. And I think that the second I was like, you know, unless you're like saving lives or delivering babies, like there is nothing more urgent than your like physical and mental health. And when I found myself in hospital, I was like, is it really more important to answer this email? Like, how did I get to this point that I thought that it was more important to be super responsive or like make the most perfect slides? And I think like changing that mentality of being like, okay, if it doesn't get done today, it doesn't get done today. And just being like a little less apologetic. about like imperfection or like, or not being like the absolute best. And I think that you realize when once you start putting those boundaries, like, other people also only answer my email like tomorrow, and it's fine. Like it's okay. I don't have to actually respond at 11 p.m.
Totally. And I'm curious, like, I feel like there's a lot of people I know who start having some physical symptoms of stress, burnout, anxiety, and maybe do the same thing. So they're like at the doctor, maybe it's not the hospital, but they're at the doctor and they're like trying to figure this out. What was the moment you were like, oh, this is mental health related?
I mean, probably when they did all the scans and they were like, there's literally nothing wrong with your head, your brain, your neck. I was like, my neck hurts me so much. Like, I simply like can't keep my head up. Like, there's a point where I was like, if I don't have pillows behind my head, I can't be on the computer. Like, that's crazy. No, they did all these scans and these tests and the blood tests, and they were like, listen, you have inflammation, no doubt about that, and like go see like sports medicine, whatever, like like take care of yourself, physio, sure, but like your tension and your inflammation is putting so much pressure on your occipital nerve that you are literally having headaches and dizziness. Like that is mental. Like the pressure that you have, like it manifests in physical tension, right? Which then like kicks off this whole cycle of like inflammation and all of that.
Totally.
But where does that source of tension come from? Like that's the psychological piece. And like that was also when I like I'd been on like a hiatus from therapy and was like, okay, it's time to get back to therapy more seriously. And I think that it took me getting to hospital, it took me being like, okay, I need to like change things to understand that I was even not mentally well. Like I knew I was a stressed out person. Again, classic type A, classic oldest sister. I was like, I'm just that's who I am. I'm high strung, high performer, like, what's it called? They called me high performing general anxiety disorder. So like that was just like, oh, well, this is how I'll always be, and that's fine. And I think maybe to a certain extent that's true. I can't change that about me. But I think there are things that I was able to change that then like in turn made a change on like my internal mental wellness.
Yeah. And how do you feel now in your head? Like, what happens when you receive that email at 11 p.m. that you accidentally check?
Probably depends who it's from.
Yeah.
But no, I think, look, that was 2020. It's been
Mhm.
like over 5 years, right? Like a lot has changed, but I think that because my foundations are much stronger, like I know how to like be more okay. And I think I've also found myself in a place in my life like that at that point I had nothing outside of my life, outside of work. I didn't have hobbies, you know what I mean? Like I didn't
Totally.
like invest or allow myself to like spend any like energy or time on anything that wasn't like getting me to like the promotion at work or whatever. And now it's just not the case. Like, I mean, to be fair, I work for a mental health company, so like they're extremely like good about this stuff. Like, we have mental health afternoons and mornings once a week that we can take off. We have stipends for therapy, and in general, they're just very, very like, growth therapy is very forward on like you're a human first, take care of yourself, like it's important, and like the performance will follow. Like that is definitely like the culture here. And so I think that that has changed. Like I don't really receive that many emails at 11 o'clock at night or pings. So if I do, I'm going to check it to make sure it's not something like, hey, I could really unblock this time sensitive thing if I just took care of it really quickly now. And if it's like, I could have also just waited until the morning, I'll wait until the morning.
Yeah, that's big. That's really big. And I'm curious, like, was there anybody in your life once you started to make these shifts who was just like, what happened to the other Ruthie? Like the one who would
No, of
respond?
course not. Like, not one person was like, why aren't you working harder and like being more stressed out? No, I think that like you are a better friend and a better person to be around when you take care of yourself.
Yeah, no, it totally makes sense. And I'm curious your thoughts because you are an expert in this space. So, one of the big conversations around mental fitness these days has to do with community and whether or not you're feeling lonely. And, do you have the right kinds of connections or relationships to kind of like feed yourself? Um, how do you see community helping people from a mental fitness perspective? And then how do you see it might be detrimental from a mental fitness perspective?
I can't imagine community being detrimental for mental fitness, but let's just put that aside a sec. I think that there is a really serious epidemic of loneliness. I think it's really like to be taken seriously at this point. I know that in the UK, like it's like they even have like a committee now, like organized, like whose like target, whose main thing is to like solve this epidemic. It's like people who are lonely and unfulfilled, like that's not going to contribute to society well. You're going to have more like clinically depressed people. You'll have, more suicide, more like homicidal thoughts. I mean, all of these, like, I'm not to be dramatic, but like if you have a majority of people who are in that headspace, like it's not going to be positive. And separately, I think, for most people, like being lonely, like nobody wants to feel that, right? So, like, what are some ways that you can like solve for that? I think one is just like, if you don't have family near you, like I live here, my family does not live here. If you don't have family and friends and a partner as like your baseline around you, right? Community is like can do that for you. Like that sense of belonging and that feeling of like, okay, well, today when I get home, like I'll log on and like chat with my friends and we'll arrange like my community friends and we'll arrange a meetup or we'll do a virtual book club. Like that changes things. Like it changes what you're coming home to versus like that, you know, singular, like I'm going to log on Instagram and scroll. Like that's not
Totally.
real connection. And that doesn't really foster a sense of belonging. So community can like help alleviate like that time that you spend online. Like can you spend that time online connecting with people? And two, like in person, like bringing people out of the house. Like, one of the places that like, I have a third space, for example. So Fabric is a third space in New York. It's a community or like a home for community builders, and therefore like I host a lot of events there because I'm a community leader and community builder, fine. But because I'm a member, I also like learn about other events that other people are doing, and then it's something else that I can either plug into or take an interest in or invite a friend to. Um, so I just think like you kind of spread that once you're in it too.
Totally. And if someone were to try to find one and they're like, okay, this whole thing sounds good, but like, where would they look?
So I think like communities. I mean, that's just like a very general thing, right? So I think like are you looking for a professional community? Like one of the first communities I joined was like marketers, women in marketing. I like, you know, people and go to market because that was my background and it was very easy for me to connect with others. And then suddenly those connections can turn into like real friendships and stuff. But that's like a starting point. So I think like you can look for professional networks and communities. You can look for like also hobbies and interest communities. You know what I mean? Like there are a lot of like virtual book clubs and other ways that you can like plug into communities. I mean, something like super simple, like the two communities that I'm most active in and like ended up even like taking on more in are women oriented communities. Because like I feel very connected to like my female energy. I'm one of five girls, as mentioned. Like, I'm very like woman oriented and therefore and because those issues matter to me, like it's likely that I'll find belonging or I'll find people who, provide me value and connection through plugging into women's communities.
Love it. Super helpful. So it's like, what's the purpose of the community? And then can you find something you care about and then connect to
Yeah.
something? And I think the point is there's a ton of stuff on the internet. Like if it's not an in-person thing, which is obviously preferable to many, there are these communities. I love the online book club too that you had mentioned, which is really fun, and a very specific kind of connection, which I love.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to ask you a couple rapid fire questions.
Yeah, that's good.
to get to know your mindy even more.
Hmm.
And if any of these don't sit, then hit skip and we'll go to the next.
Okay.
Okay, so first question is, when was the last time that you tried something new and it didn't work out? And what did you learn?
Part of the community thing is like I've been more open to communities or events and things I wasn't previously a part of. So like I attended this like, virtual workshop writing like class. I wouldn't have done that before. Not because I actually was a writer like in a previous life, but like because I would never just like want to get on a virtual workshop and like what would that even be like, and why would I spend my Sunday evening like that? And so I tried it and I actually really enjoyed it. Other things, let me think. I mean, book clubs and reading. Again, like 2 years ago, you would never like find me doing that. Like I just wasn't able to like truly like invest in like hobbies, even though I'd made changes. Really only in like since 2023 did I really get to the point where I was like, okay, I'm open. Like I started singing lessons again at the end of
Fun.
2023, and it was like, oh, like I can do that, and I can take this time and it's fine. And then like started to get like really deeply back into reading, and now I read like 3 books a month kind of thing. um so I just like think that in general, like as an approach I've taken is openness, like being open to things, not necessarily like, oh, this will become my personality and this will be my defining hobby, but at least I tried it.
Totally. And I think something really interesting that you just called out is like this idea that you weren't ready until like 2023, after 3 years after you started kind of changing the way that you showed up for you and your mind,
Yeah.
to take on some of these new hobbies. And I think a lot of folks think that when they like, they'll never have enough time to do that. And if they added meditation or if they added working out, like that you wouldn't necessarily have enough time to start something new. But is it fair to say that like as a result of taking care of your mind, you've had more space to try new things?
100%. Yeah, definitely. No question.
Very cool. Um, okay, next question. When was the last time you failed and you're now better because of it?
Failed. Failed. The F word. Um, failed. I like I left my like last company after like 7 years and was like, oh, I'm gonna take this like 3 year like the 3 month like period and find a job. Like I'm gonna take a little bit of time off and then I'm gonna find a job in that time and it's gonna be like amazing, and then like new job. And then like job searching ended up being like not at all. Like I thought I'd be like really good at it. I had so much experience. Like I'm not uncomfortable speaking to people. Like I thought I'd interview well, and it ended up being like such a like I don't know mirror reflection. Like okay, it's not that simple. I'm like you failed at getting it done in 3 months. It ended up taking like 11. So I think I'm better because of what I experienced. Also, like because I was job searching for so long, I started consulting. That just changed. Like I'd never ever considered consulting. I'd never ever considered like freelance or any of that stuff until that time period. And it took like me being like, all right, well, 2023 has ended and I don't have a job, to being like, all right, so in 2024, what am I going to do differently? Because like this can't continue. A
That's big.
failure.
I love the F word that you said. It's very big, and that's a huge deal, because I feel like I would consider that a huge part of like who you are is like you just do a lot of different things all the time,
Yeah.
which is super impressive. What's a piece of life advice that you love or that you are have been living by these days?
Hmm. Once when I was like really stressed out and like crying at work, one of my like coworkers was like, Ruthie, are you doing your best? And I was like, yes, I'm doing my best. I'm really trying. I'm doing my best. And he was like, well, then you can't do better than your best. And I was like, like mind blown. And to this day, I'm like, if I'm really giving it my all and I'm really trying, then that's it. Like that's all I can do. I can't do more than my best.
Totally. Um, what's like the wackiest thing that you've tried to work on your mental health or mental fitness?
Rockiest thing. I feel like it was like some kind of like sound bath, something along those lines. I don't remember exactly, like vibrations and just thinking like, oh, maybe this will make me chillax.
Did it work?
No, of course not. No, like I can't. And this is like again, I think that all of this comes down to like it's very personal, like what works for you, what doesn't. Like I can get into mindfulness and I can get into like meditation and I can, focus on my breathing. But if it gets like too woo woo spiritual for me, it's hard. Like I start to like disconnect. For my sisters, for some of my friends, like without the spiritual, it's just not doing it for them at all. So I think like it
Totally.
really depends on like what you seek out and what you need and what makes sense for you. But yeah, I've definitely like done some like things being like, well, I don't know why I spent money on that because that was really not helpful, you know?
We have all been there, and I feel like we all have our own versions of that. I love that you called that out, that for your sisters and some of your friends, like
That's
that's
the
the
thing.
answer for
My
them.
sister like
Um,
does life alignment, like with magnets, like, and the pendulums above your body. I can't, like, it's hard for me to like connect to that. But I totally understand like why that would be helpful for someone else. Like
totally.
Reiki and all of that, like the touchless stuff. It's harder for me.
Oh, I get it. I totally get that. I'm curious, is there a person or a story that you come back to as like a role model or kind of like a reframe that inspire you whenever you feel like your world's rocking or things are getting really stressful again?
A person or a story. I mean, my mom literally had 5 kids. So like she's definitely one of the people that I'm just like, I don't know how you did it. Like she had 3 under 3,
Wow.
like sociopath, maybe. But like I'm so impressed with her because she also lost her mom when she was like 19 years old. So she did this without even like having her mom to lean on to like have
Wow.
like any kind of support from. So I just think like she's just like the ultimate mother and like caregiver in my mind. So I definitely like look up to her like when I think about like supporting others or being there for others, like she's definitely a model. And then like professionally, I think like I've definitely met some women along the way who have really shown me like not that you can have it all, but like it's possible to like kick ass at your career and be a mother and a good one.
Totally.
It's
Yeah.
not impossible the way I had interpreted it.
Yeah. No, I do. And that's amazing about your mom. I'm one of 4 kids. So my mom had 4 under 4 because my sister and I are twins.
Nuts.
So they
Nuts.
are heroes. Um, I'm curious, second to last question. If you were to give yourself advice back in 2020, like before you started getting dizzy and you went to the hospital and kind of made a lot of these changes, what would you have said to yourself to try to get your attention, um, to pay more attention to your mind?
I think it's a bit of that like, you know, is someone going to die? Is a baby not going to be delivered because of this? Like perspective. I just think that I had consumed, like work had consumed my world so much that I had like lost my perspective on like what reality was and like what like priorities are in reality. And again, childless, no kids, pandemic, nowhere to go. Like you just put all your, like, I just put all my energy in the work. And so I think that maybe like the advice would be one, perspective, and two, like go outside, like take
Touch
a
grass.
fucking walk. Like, you know what I mean? Like, do not stay in the apartment all day. Like, you'll lose your mind. And that's what happened. I really lost my mind. And I guess, like, for
Totally.
context, like, in case it wasn't obvious, like, I'm a raging extrovert. So, like, for me to be cooped up in the apartment for
Totally.
so long, like, I truly lost my mind. Like, my husband at one point, throughout the pandemic was like, you didn't leave the house today, did you? And I'll be like, no. And he'll be like, okay, let's go for a walk. So I think like taking more time, like take those breaks, like take the mental health breaks. They're very real.
Totally. I love the term, by the way, raging extrovert. I'm gonna have to use that somewhere.
Yeah.
That's good. And no, it's not possible and it's not healthy for anybody. I feel like everyone needs different doses of human, but you got to figure out what your dose is and make sure you're getting that
Yeah.
in. Okay, Ruthie. So if people want to find you and learn more about your communities, building, connect with you, join one of the communities that you're involved in, where can they find you?
Well, I'm like off Instagram now and I never had a TikTok and I'm such a millennial, like basically just like catch me on LinkedIn. But I'm part of a lot of Slack communities. So if we have something in common or we are in similar communities, feel free to Slack me because I basically live on Slack and I have like 30 something Slack workspaces between work, the
Amazing.
communities I'm part of and run, and the parts that I'm just like part of. But yeah, I mean, probably LinkedIn, and then like from there, like I'm if you're in the city, then I'm probably going to suggest meeting up in person
Love it.
for an
Very
in-person
cool.
coffee versus a virtual coffee chat.
Which is preferred every day, every way.
Not for everyone, but for me.
I get that. I get that. Well, it's definitely preferred for me too.
Yeah.
Well, Ruthie, I can't wait to see you in person soon in New York
Yes.
City. Thank you so much for joining me on this week's episode of the Modern Mind interview series. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Ruthie, you're the best. Learned a ton. And for anybody out there who's wondering if they should join a community today, tomorrow, next week, the answer is absolutely yes.
Absolutely, yes.
Absolutely.